via LinkedIn as well. So today we are going to talk about the interview process and do an overview of the hiring process. We will talk about resume preparation, and I'll give you any tips. I'll give you some tips, but if you have questions about resume preparation, we'll talk about that as well. We'll also talk about interview strategies, and we'll do a quick workshop. So I do need some volunteers to go through the workshop with me. So that way we can help each other learn and grow. And I'll give you some feedback. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. We'll talk a little bit about company research and the importance of looking over company research as you're going through the interview process. And it's also important to do this before you go through the interview process so that you can look at companies that align with you, align with your values, because at the end of the day, you're not just interviewing, going through the interview process, you're also interviewing that company to see if it's a place that you want to be and you want to work. Because we do spend most of our time at work, so it has to be a place that you enjoy being. We'll also talk about networking opportunities and the importance of that, overcoming rejection. We're in a weird time right now. So I get, like today, one of my friends just texted me. She's been going through a long interview process. She just had her 6th interview a few days ago, and she did not get selected for the job. And so that's a lot of what I do too, is talking our friends off the ledge. Because sometimes it's hard going through that process and having so many interviews and feeling confident, and then you get that letter that you weren't selected. But most times it's not you. There's so many people that are applying to different jobs. There's so many people that are going through the interview process, and there's only one position. So hiring managers have to be objective in terms of who they end up selecting at the end. But it's hard for our ego because we want that job, and we've invested so much time. And some jobs now they want you to create a presentation and do all this work before you actually get there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll also talk about key hiring process statistics, so you can kind of understand what is happening at the end of the process and really understand how long it takes recruiters to go through the recruitment life cycle. All right, so as I was putting this together, I was thinking about what I was going to share with you guys about the hiring process and what it entails, so you'll kind of understand what happens once a position is posted. So the first step is job posting. But before a position even gets posted, recruiters have a meeting with the hiring managers to, first, hiring managers request the position. They go through the process behind the scenes in terms of getting a position approved, because each position has to be approved by leadership before you actually see it. So once the position is posted, before a position is posted, a recruiter will meet with the hiring manager, talk about their key things that they're looking for in terms of what type of candidate they're looking for, what type of skills they want them to have, how many years of experience, and also making sure that aligns with the compensation as well, because years of experience also equates to compensation. That goes hand in hand. So once that meeting happens, then they'll go through us creating the requisition and then putting the job out there so you guys can actually see the position. Once the position is posted, usually, I'll give you an example. At Microsoft, we had 7 days for a position to be posted. And it's either 7 days or 400 applicants. So if we reach 400 applicants, so if we reach, let's say, after 2 days, we reach 400 applicants, that position is going to go down. But there's a lot of times where there can be 1,000 applicants for one position. It just depends. And with
larger companies, there's so many people applying to positions that it's hard for recruiters to be able to go through all of those applications. So my key advice to you guys, set alerts. First thing is, do your research in terms of what companies align with your mission, your vision, your goals. So that way you'll be able to set alerts for different positions that come up. So when positions are posted, you're able to go right in, apply for those roles, and be one of the first people to apply. Being one of the first people to apply gives you a higher chance of a recruiter being able to see your application. So repeat after me. What are you guys gonna do? Okay, awesome. Now, after you apply to a position, what happens there, the recruiter will review your resume and review your application and make sure that it aligns with what the hiring manager is looking for. Now, remember when I said there's a lot of people that apply to positions. You can have over 400 applicants. So for me personally, I start from the bottom up and look at candidates, like the first candidates that apply, and go from there. Based on the applications or submissions that I get, then I'll review those candidates, and then the top candidates will be those who I will reach out to and kind of do a deeper dive conversation with you to make sure that it's even worth showing the hiring manager. So make sure that your resume really reflects your skill set, your background. If it's a technical role, especially you put, if the position is calling for you to have experience in GitHub, GitLab, C#, C++, all of that. Make sure it aligns with the job descriptions, because hiring managers are a mixed bag. There are some that are very open to having someone join their team who is eager and willing to learn, and someone who can do well on their coding exercises and things like that. And then there's some hiring managers who are really rigid, and they just want candidates that have every single thing that they're looking for. And sometimes you can find that, and sometimes you can't. So you want to be able to put yourself at the top of the list by being able to make sure that your resume depicts your background and experience. So after that, after we screen the resume, then usually, depending on the company, either the recruiter does the phone screen or the hiring manager does the phone screen. Sometimes you have hiring managers who want to be proactive in the process, and they'll reach out to you directly and kind of talk with you and have a conversation. Or the recruiter will reach out to you and talk to you and kind of talk, understand your background and skill set. There are some companies now that use other methods, such as like Modern Hire, where, have you guys ever applied to a job and you get an email with a link for you to kind of record yourself and answer questions? That's something that a lot of companies are doing as well to save time. So also take those very seriously, because recruiters and hiring managers are reviewing that. So look at those types of interviews, even though sometimes you haven't had the opportunity to physically talk to somebody. Look at those as you're having a Zoom interview or a Teams interview with someone, because you want to make sure that your background is good. Everything that you would do on a regular interview, virtual interview, if you get a link to do, answer some questions, we are looking at that stuff. So take it seriously. That can make or break whether or not you move forward in the process sometimes. So definitely take that seriously. Now, once we have the opportunity to go through the phone interview and we determine whether or not you would be a good fit, then we'll go into doing an in-person interview, or if it's a technical position, you will most likely do a coding exercise. Sometimes those coding exercises are done in a whiteboard setting, or they'll have some technical questions that they'll ask you and kind of want to understand how you would answer those questions. Now, based on your answers, then that can pique the hiring manager's interest in terms of whether or not they're going to probe a little bit more, or if you don't know what you're talking about. So you definitely want to make sure that your resume, like I said, aligns with the role, but also aligns with your skill set and your level of comfortability. Now, there are some positions where if you have about 85, 90% of the skill set, hiring managers are flexible, like I said, but there are some that are really rigid, and your ability to be able to do the role and understand the technical piece of the position comes out within the coding session. So if it's a position where you do have to code, because the recruiter will tell you that in the beginning, be honest. If you're not good at coding, or there's some areas that you can potentially work on, be honest in the beginning, because what you don't want is to get to the technical side or the technical screen, and you're either meeting with some senior engineers on the team or whoever's assigned to do your coding exercise, and they go back and give you poor feedback. Because I'd rather you be honest in the beginning than you get feedback from a team member or whoever's doing your interview. That feedback stays in the system. So if you go and apply to another position, a good recruiter is going to go back and look at the feedback from your previous interviews to even see if it's worth giving you a call. So if you have negative feedback in there, they're most likely not going to want to move forward. Some, depending on the position, they'll reach out to you and kind of talk to you and see what happened, but you want to make sure that you give yourself the best opportunity in the beginning. All right, does that make sense? All right. So let's say we go through all of the interviews, and some positions do reference checks once after you accept a position. But depending on the company, again, some people may be linked to somebody that you know on LinkedIn, and they might do a behind the scenes reference check and reach out to somebody and say, hey, do you know so-and-so, and ask about how it was to work with you, because sometimes it's not all about what you can bring to the table in terms of your technical ability, but it's what you can bring to the table overall. Like, for example, at Microsoft, you had an interview that, it used to be 6 interviews, but now it's 4. So one of those interviews, or 3 of those interviews, will be behavioral based, but you'll be given questions that kind of gauge what kind of person you are. What will you be able to contribute to the team and the organization holistically? So when you approach the interview process, look at it as they're looking at my overall package. So definitely talk about things that you do outside of work. Talk about if you volunteer at different places, because service is one of the things that's really big there. So, talk about things that you do outside of work, things you do within the community. Really just show that you're not all about work, and you can bring, the full perspective to the table. All right? And then background and skill assessments, we kind of talked a little bit about that. Job offer, that is very important. So how many of you have gotten a job offer and you were so excited you just accepted the job? Okay. So why did you just accept the job?
Probably because typically I gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just accepted it.
Okay. Why didn't you negotiate?
Not that that was an option at that time. Let's instead let things.
Okay. So why did you feel like it wasn't an option?
It's really hard. It was my best second job. So as a junior engineer, it felt like I was lucky to get that, but it's starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, I have more experience. It feels like I have leverage to be able to
Okay. So would you say you feel more comfortable now with being able to negotiate an offer?
Yes.
And what are some of the things that you ask? Like if you counter an offer, let's say I offered you 100K, what would be your thought process to come back and counter that offer?
I would ask, well, first, I would look at the average pay for other engineers. Substack and Glassdoor usually has postings on average pay, and it's well under the average. I would ask, be like, at least be in the middle here. I really like the job, sounds amazing, but average pay for this role is this based on these statistics could be at least meet that. And if they say no, I want like, what's your payback and what's the limitation?
So that's good, but always make sure that in the beginning, when you have that first conversation with the recruiter, they're most likely going to ask you, what are your salary expectations? So make sure you're honest. I would say always give a range during that time. So that way, if you get an offer and they come back with something that's beneath what you mentioned in the first call, always reference that. But then also during that first call, they should be able to give you what the salary band is for that position. But I would say for all of you who get an offer, always negotiate your offer. I know sometimes, like, especially I'll use myself as an example. So my parents are from West Africa. So, coming here, they're like, if you get a job, just take it, just go ahead, just take it. And it's just like, no. Why? Because they feel like if you come back and negotiate, you kind of look like you're not happy about what was offered, you're not grateful, that whole thing. But companies are expecting you to negotiate. So just as you approach the job process and you get an offer, they're expecting you to come back and counter. So don't feel bad about countering an offer when you get an offer. Be excited. But I would say definitely be prepared, as you're going through the process, and know what your range is. Know exactly what you're looking for. So like, let's say for you, if you wanted to be like, I'll use like when you just graduated, right? Usually recent grads are probably between 100 to 125, depending on the company. So if you're going into that and you know, okay, that can be my range, as long as I get something that falls within that, I'll be happy. So always start high. I mean, that's the expectation. Especially if you do really well in your coding exercises and you do really well through the whole process. The recruiter is there to advocate for you, but if you do well, you make a good impression with everyone that you're interviewing with, those people will go and talk to the hiring manager and be like, hey, we need to hire this person, do what you need to do. So just make sure that you know what you're targeting, so that way when you're having those conversations, even though you're doing your research on Glassdoor and all that, there's different factors that go into that, So sometimes what people post, what they're making, it also depends on their skill set and background and experience. To kind of just use it as a way to get a idea, but don't use it as like the Bible, essentially, okay? So just know that companies are expecting you to negotiate, know what you're looking for in the beginning, so that way when they're having those initial conversations with you, you know exactly what would make you comfortable. And also, with some companies, you can negotiate other things. If PTO is more important to you than having a high salary, you can ask, can I get more PTO? Is that negotiable? Or are some of the other benefits negotiable? So just make sure that you have a more informed conversation. And just remember that the recruiters are there to advocate for you and support you. So always remember that the interview process starts when you hit apply. And then when you actually talk to somebody, they are interviewing you and remembering their interactions with you, their engagement with you the whole time. So just make sure that you leave a good first impression, because you never get an opportunity to do that a second time. All right? So anybody have any questions about job offer? Did what I say make sense? Is this helpful to you guys? You guys are so quiet. Okay, you have a question? Okay. All right, and then acceptance and onboarding. So once you go through that process, yay, you got your job offer, you got the salary you wanted, you're excited, you can actually negotiate your start date too. So I know some hiring managers want you to start as soon as possible, but you do what's best for you. Like some people like to take a few weeks off in between jobs so they can like recalibrate and get their mind ready. So you can negotiate that as well. So just make sure that you're in a place that you're ready to do that. All right. Paid time off. Yeah. So most companies have like a standard amount of time that they provide employees. So like, let's say, depending on what level you come in, of what company, if they're able to kind of give you a few more vacation days, then ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about preparing, the importance of preparing a winning resume. So you want to make sure that your resume stands out from other people. You want to make sure that you make a lasting impression because, again, your resume is the first thing that recruiters look at. So, you know, even though they don't have an opportunity to talk to you just yet, you want to make sure that your resume is nicely formatted. You don't have any, spelling errors or anything like that, because that is highly looked at, especially if a hiring manager is looking at resumes as well, because sometimes hiring managers have access to the requisitions and they can go in and take a look at candidates themselves. And if they see errors or they see that you don't have certain things listed on your resume and you get that rejection email, really think back. Did I put every experience that I have? Did I put that I have experience in C#, or did I leave that out? Because they're looking for that. That's the determining factor, one of the determining factors that helps them decide whether or not they're going to move forward. So you want to make sure that you have something on there that grabs the attention of the hiring manager and makes them want to talk to you a little bit more. I tell my clients to think about the resume as the appetizer. When you go like to a restaurant, you go in, you order an appetizer. The resume is the same. This just kind of piques the interest of the hiring manager and makes them want to learn a little bit more about you. And then when you get that first interview, that's your opportunity to start talking a little bit more about your background, your experience, and what you can bring to the table. All right? Really, the resume is your opportunity to make them excited about you. All right? Any questions on the resume? No? How do you guys feel about your resumes? Do you think you have good resumes so far? Yeah? Okay. All right. So, acing the interview. You definitely want to make sure that you prepare. You will, of course, you're not going to know what questions you're going to be asked in the interview. Every interview process is different depending on the company. But you want to make sure that you have if it's a behavioral interview, you have your main key points that you're going to talk about. Because 9 out of 10, you're going to be asked the same variation of a question. So like, for example, if they start out, well, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background, or why are you interested in this opportunity, or tell me about a difficult client that you worked with. What was the problem? What was the outcome? What was the solution? So if you think of standard examples that you can use within the interview process, that will make it easier for you. You can just kind of sprinkle in a little bit of, any additional information you want to give as examples, but at least you have your staples that you use. So that way, when you're asked that question, you're not caught off guard. All right. Make sure you arrive early and composed. You give yourself time to, take a breath, take a breather, give yourself some good self-talk before your interviews. A lot of interviews are still done virtually. So how many people have most recently had an in-person interview? Okay, so most have had virtual interviews, right? So for those of you that have recently had virtual interviews, let me get a volunteer real quick. A different volunteer. Okay. What's your name? Alexa. So Alexa, tell me, what did you do before your interview? How did you prepare? With your PJs on? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what did you tell yourself? So Alexandria said that she took a few minutes before she logged into the virtual interview, took a breath, she made sure she was dressed professionally, and her interview was on Central Time, so she made sure that she double checked the time again, because that is an issue. Sometimes people forget that it's not Eastern Time and they miss their interview. So make sure you do all of that actually the day before, so that way you check and double check. But then what are some other things that you did to make sure that you felt confident and prepared before your interview?
Well, actually, I feel like maybe
Mm-hmm. Okay.
sometimes you can use to talk to people
Mm-hmm.
that you get to know. I guess that's like
To practice. Mm-hmm.
Conversation, exactly. So she said what she did, she's had a lot of practice with different interviews, and what she has done is has found a way to keep calm and approach the interview as a conversation, which is exactly what it is. Just having a conversation with someone. Start off by trying to find a common interest, because that's how a hiring manager will remember you. So when you start out the interview, just have a little bit of small talk. Don't just go straight into, well, I did da 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 da. Try to figure out what that person is about, so that way they'll have a point of reference when when they're going back and reviewing candidates and thinking about who they would like to move forward with. Practice and rehearse. All of you guys should be friends here, so find someone that you can practice with, and that person can ask you some questions and kind of see how you feel about your responses. And sometimes we don't like hearing ourselves talk, is hearing feedback, but you have to put yourself in a space and opportunity to be able to get some feedback so you can learn and grow. So find somebody that you feel comfortable with that can give you some feedback. Always demonstrate enthusiasm when you're going through interviews. I have had so many people who just joined the call. I had this one person, their bed was like unmade, everything was everywhere. They had their cat like hanging. I mean, I've seen a lot of different things. So you want to make sure that you are excited about the position. You've really taken an opportunity to make sure your background is clean and clear. If you have to do your interview in your bedroom, make sure that it's made. Just the little things, because you don't know, you're not in person with this individual that's interviewing you. So you don't know what they're thinking. They're looking at you, but they're also looking at your surroundings. So even if you blur your surroundings, sometimes if that person the background, and his wife's underwear was hanging in the background. And I'm just like, no. I have some stories. I can write a book on it. Just stuff that I see. So please, make sure that you're in a good, yes. And if you have to be at home, you just, move your desk in front of just a blank wall or something, just, yes, exactly. So, and also on demonstrating enthusiasm, even though, working in the tech field, you get a lot of candidates who are very confident in their skill set. Yes, they know their stuff, they're great at what they do, and that comes across in the interview. And sometimes that can be taken poorly because you're cocky, you're overconfident. Yes, you're overconfident and you're borderline rude. So make sure that you check yourself at the door before you go through that process, because you want to make sure you come across as someone that not only the hiring manager would want to work with, but other teammates. All right. Dress for success. We kind of talked about that already. So make sure if you are going to dress up from the top, make sure everything is good. And then also, once you go through the interview process, make sure that you follow up. When I was growing up, I used to send handwritten letters or, go by and thank people personally. But since we're in the digital age, definitely make sure that you follow up, send a nice email, thank you for your time. If you have the opportunity to get the hiring manager's email, send them a quick note, or if you don't have that information, send a note to the recruiter, just, asking them to share this note with the team. So that just shows that you took some time to thank the team, you thought about the experience, and that's another way for people to actually remember you as they go through the selection process. All right, so this is the time where I will need, are we doing one or two? Okay, so I need 2 brave volunteers. We'll start off with the first person. But what we're gonna do is I will ask some interview questions and you will answer those questions, and then I'll give you some feedback. And the purpose of us doing this is just so that all of us can learn. This is an opportunity for us to learn and grow and be able to take something from this session and apply it to your next interview that you will hopefully get very soon. So, do I have any takers, or do I have to pick somebody?
Oh my God, it's great. We get feedback from a real person who worked at Microsoft, Google, Comcast, on the lifetime. Any takers? Hey, we got it. Yeah. And they give you no money.
Okay. Thank you. Who's going to be the second person?
Anyone else?
I'm doing it.
You're gonna do it? I'm gonna buy it. I'm all grateful. Listen, I would not pass the time.
All right, so would it be less intimidating for me to sit in front of you and ask you these questions, or do you want me to just ask and you answer? Okay. Can you tell me your name? You gotta speak louder, I can't hear you.
Carlene Wallace.
Carly, nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you too.
All right, so you remember when I talked a little bit about the interview process and what to do when we first go through the interview process, right? Have a little bit of what? Small talk, get to know the person.
Yes, small talk, get to know the person, so it's not too rigid.
Okay. So Carlene, we're gonna take, do you want a time, like 15 minutes? Okay. So we're gonna take some time and I'll ask you some questions and then I'll give you some feedback, okay? All right. So Carlene, how are you today?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and allowing me to learn a little bit about your background. And so today we're just gonna talk about you, okay? So just feel free to share anything that you'd like for me to So, we are interviewing for an AI engineering role, all right? So tell me a little bit about tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this AI engineering position.
Okay, so first, my name is Fatima Kargbo-Gathers. I'm Jamaican. I've been a STEM teacher for the last 6 years. I have a BA in business management, a master's in instructional curriculum, and with a STEM concentration. I'm now also doing a second master's in artificial intelligence. I'm interested in this position because that's where, being a STEM teacher over the last couple of years, teaching coding and the different aspects of engineering and, a little math in here. I also got the opportunity to teach my kids artificial intelligence, and that's where the world is moving now. So you have to go with the times of, what's going on around us. And I've had the opportunity to sit down and practice with a few AI applications, and I've gotten to love the whole process of, using AI to create different things. And as such, I decided to major in it and also want to pursue a career full-time in this. So therefore, I saw the opportunity and I applied.
So what is it about the opportunity that interests you and why are you the best fit?
I want to do a lot more with AI. So I want to be able to reach a larger platform or a larger group of people using AI. Different, whether write books, create music, different areas, different platforms that I want to venture into. And I think this position would help me to do that as well. Building websites, applications that does that for us.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your technical experience. What kind of tools and software systems have you used and that you would call?
I'm currently, I do the skills in Python, database, a few different AI applications. I've delved in them here and there.
Mhm.
So I know I have the skill sets for it. And, there's always room for improvements.
So what specific tools have you used?
I've used OpenArt AI. I've used, face swapping interfaces. I've used different applications that you use to write storybooks with AI illustrations, AI platforms that write the books based on, script. I've done movies, like create music videos. I've used Suno to create different beats, different music, lyrics. Yes, a lot more than that, but just a
Okay.
few.
Okay. So tell me about a time. Well, actually, we'll do this question. Describe a challenge or setback that you faced recently. What was the challenge and how did you handle it and what was the overall outcome?
So I faced a few challenges. One of the challenges I would say is that I have with AI, that is to have an AI, is that if you're trying to do like illustration, it hasn't learned how to do like human anatomy.
Mhm.
It does not get it perfect yet. So honestly, I would like to be on a team that can help to perfect that aspect
Mhm.
of getting the human body in the right way, putting the fingers in the right places. So that was one challenge when I was trying to create a project, which, I tried different software, different apps that
Okay.
had a better, output. So that helped with that challenge.
Okay. So the question was describe a challenge that you recently went through. What was the challenge, which you already gave us that information? What was the final outcome?
Well, the final outcome is that I had to use another platform, which made me, research searched and found many other platforms that can do the same thing and probably do it a little bit better
Mhm.
than the one I was previously using.
Okay. All right. I'll ask you one more question and then I'll give you some feedback. So, why are you the best fit for this role? Why should we select you?
So, why I think I am the best fit for the role? Even though I have experience, I am also adaptive, flexible, and I'm easy to, work with. I also I'm not gonna act like I know everything. I will, I am welcoming to criticism and, I'll be able to change if that is necessary. And also I'm a quick learner. I have great critical thinking skills. I have great problem solving skills. I also, I know how to work on my own initiative. And I think I do very well working under pressure, which is not a good thing, but yeah, I work very well under pressure.
That's every job. You're going to have some kind of pressure.
Yes. So I work well under pressure. I am a great team leader and team player as well. So I know I have a lot of skills that will benefit the role.
Okay. Well, do you have any questions for me?
Sure.
Any made-up questions? And if you don't, that's fine.
How many hours do we get for PTO per year?
15. You'll get 15 PTO days, and then you have your standard 10 paid holidays.
Okay. So what if I need some more than that?
Then
That can be arranged.
that's something you'll have to talk to your manager with, because there is unpaid time if you go over that time. But that's something that you'll have to discuss with your manager.
Is there any opportunity for like hybrid work where I can work some days at home and some
Well,
days in the office?
This particular position is in office. So how do you feel about that?
Oh, that's great. All right, next question.
You moved away from that question really quick.
Next question. Do we get transportation allowance? Like, reimbursement for that?
It depends on your location. Yeah, it depends on your location. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being my first volunteer. So, you tell me first, before I give you some feedback, how do you think you do?
I did okay.
Why just okay?
Well, I think if I had a little bit more time to prepare, and it was impromptu, I would have done a little bit of research.
But you always have to be ready.
I know, but
You always got to be ready. You never know. Look, you never know who you're going to meet in certain situations. Just like the dean said, I can tell you guys all of this, but the way to get a job is to network and talk to people. And the more people that know what you want to do, what you're good at, they have a good experience working with you, the more those people can be your advocates in rooms that you may not be in. All right? Most of the jobs that I've had, I didn't apply to because people just either reached out to me, or they're people that I used to work with, or, so if you make a good impression and you provide a good service, because when you're working, you're providing a service to that company and the customers or vendors that you work with. So people are going to remember their experience with you, just like your walk in life. If people have a good experience with you, they're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to know a little bit more about you and hang with you. So you do the same, when you approach the interview process. So I know you were nervous. Definitely, like if I was sitting in front of you, make sure you maintain eye contact and you're engaging the interviewer. I know you're looking around because you're thinking about what you're going to say, but you want to make sure that you're engaged with that person. Okay. Make sure too that you have your staple things that you're going to say. You know what you've done. You know what tools and systems you've used. Don't say I've used a lot, okay? What does that mean, right? Because the recruiter is going to take this specific information back to the hiring manager and say they have this, you know, experience with these tools. They'll come back and say, well, did you ask about this? What about this? You know? So you want to make sure that you are answering those questions with detail and you give them the feedback in terms of like what tools you've used, what your experience consists of. So that way they get a full rundown. All right. How many of you know what an elevator pitch is? Okay, what's an elevator pitch?
Like you give yourself like 60 seconds to sell yourself to another person.
Okay. Have you created one?
I did, but it needs a lot of polish.
Okay. So what's your... You're like, no. Don't be shy. Even though it needs polish, tell me what your elevator pitch is. Like, what have you...
Give you like the flow of it.
Yeah.
Usually I would start with, hi, my name is Patricia, so nice to meet you, like a little bit of small talk, and then I would be like, sometimes I would say I was born and raised in the Philippines, and then like my background, what do I do, what can I put on the table, and be like, maybe I don't always hand out like my calling card or my LinkedIn,
Okay.
to keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked that is because you literally will never know when you're going to be in an elevator with somebody that could change your life. So if you always have to be ready. If somebody asks you, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell me what you want to do, what interests you. Like, already have that ready to go. Even if it's not 100% and totally perfect like how you would want, give yourself time to practice that. So that way, when people come and say, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, I liked your answer, but it was long. So you want to make sure that it's like 60 seconds, okay? And you want to make sure that you're able to give a good, robust, explanation of yourself, but make it short and sweet. So that way you give the other person a little bit of opportunity to talk about themselves, because people love talking about themselves. So if you get your elevator, just look at it this way. Get your elevator pitch out the way so they can start talking about themselves, and they can give you information and you get to know them and learn how you could potentially work with that person. All right, make sense? So, any feedback from any of you guys for our lovely volunteer? What do you guys think she could have done better?
Before you, oh my gosh, why isn't this ready? Before you, I want to give her a round of applause.
Yes. Great job. So, who wants to give some feedback? Thank you. Can I get one person?
This is your opportunity to be a recruiting person or a hiring manager. All right, get up, volunteer.
Overall, I thought it was lovely, but when that was about getting over something difficult, I would have really learned a little bit more. If you're talking about something technical and the way we're using it, drill into it and like kind of like make it funny, or like, a little bit of humor adds a twist there, because then you can talk about how you were really good at doing this other thing because of that, right?
Right.
So like, yes, I couldn't get the humanity part of it. It was not going to work. I kept throwing the hand to this paper or to this object. It's quite nuts. So instead, now one of the things I ended up doing was pivoting using this other tool and tweaking the prompt here. So by giving those specifics and how you improved and pivoted, you're showing like your flexibility of thought, right? That's
Thank you. That was good. And also, if you were working, state whether or not you were working on an individual project or if you're working with a team too, because you also want to make sure that you're able to showcase your ability to work with a team. Not just say you can, but also showcase that as well. Okay? So, who's my next volunteer? Do we have time? Okay. Yeah, we could do some Q&A in terms of like interview questions. So any burning questions you guys have about the interview process, or if you're currently going through the interview process and you have questions, this is our time to talk about that now.
We still have a lot more goodies to give away.
Huh?
We still have a lot of goodies to give away.
Yes.
Any other-
Just one thing I'd like to add, what I noticed with the interviews that I've done from the years.
You have to know something about a company that you look into being hired by. You have to know at least 2 to 3 points, important points about a company. They always ask, so what do you know about a company? You have to know what you're talking about. That is supposed to say, okay, I know your tutorial and your school and whatever now. And those points, 3 important points. And possibly even the company's values and,
Yeah, like if it's
mission statement and how does it resonate with you?
right.
That would help with the interview as well.
Mm-hmm. And like for example, a lot of startups, they really like when you look into what they're doing, what their market position is, all of that fun stuff. So do your research, but also make sure that you're prepared in terms of how you're going to approach the interview, what you're going to share about yourself, talking about your technical experience, that kind of thing. All right? Go ahead.
What are some resume tips for somebody that's transitioning into a new field?
Great question. So I would talk about, well, tell me a little bit about what you currently do and what you're wanting to transition into. What's your background?
So my name is Jeremiah.
Okay.
I'm a data specialist
Okay.
at a nonprofit.
Okay.
And I'm trying to transition into network administration and cybersecurity.
Okay. So really focus on some of the things that you've done in your current role that's transferable. You want to highlight, like, let's say you look at a role and you may not have the exact experience, but you have some experience that showcases that you are open and you have those transferable skills. I will highlight that. And then once you get an opportunity to talk to someone, like a recruiter in the initial stages, really talk about the different projects that you did, how your work has impacted the team, the company, and how you would be able to contribute to the new company that you're trying to go to. So just make sure you showcase it on your resume and make it make sense, because sometimes if people just apply to roles and you're not seeing the experience, you're not seeing the correlation there, then you're going to get passed over. It doesn't make sense. So.
Also, earlier you expressed that in some applications, in some job.
So just make sure that you're open and honest in the beginning, and then do your research on what companies are actually continuing the sponsorship process. Or you can just ask that in the beginning of the call when you're talking to recruiters as well.
Yeah, I mean, my other question was going to be about the cover letter.
Mm-hmm.
Like how a cover letter asks, you're going to talk about yourself. Do we need to mention that we need sponsorship? Or do we
I
need
wouldn't.
internship? Do we need to say CPT?
I would, yeah, I would wait until you actually talk to somebody. And then cover letters, I have a love-hate relationship. Recruiters have a very limited amount of time to review resumes. So looking at cover letters, it's nice to have. Sometimes the hiring managers would love to see them. Like if I have hiring managers that go into the recs and review candidate applications, sometimes they read it. But I'll be honest, sometimes we don't have time to read it. So have it ready, but you're welcome. All right.
Most times on the application,
Most times when you're applying for a job, one of the questions that they ask before putting it is if you need visa sponsorship
Yeah,
most recruiters usually have that as one of their
yeah, you'll see that.
before the pre-screening, before you're even given an interview.
Yeah, but if someone checks yes and we move forward, there's still going to be some follow-up questions. So that's why I said make sure you're open and honest about, yeah, everything in the beginning. All right, any other questions?
Run the file in there. We got one more question. And then we're going to open some stamps, Q&A, and picture.
I have just a quick question about resume.
Okay.
So, back in Colombia, resume, we had like the color, picture.
Can you, yeah, speak a little bit louder.
Sorry. So back in Colombia, we have the resume with pictures and colors and things, and it's like.
That's a lot happening.
So, when I came here, I saw many resumes and they were like so plain. And then I saw your picture there, they have the picture. So, I don't know, my resume is super plain right now, but
Yeah.
I don't know why you think all the picture.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was the reason why I used that resume. Because me personally, I don't like pictures. I like to be able to look at a candidate's experience and background and not prejudge, because people are going to look at a picture and prejudge. That's just how people are. So I like to give everyone a fair chance and looking at the resumes as a clean slate. For me, when I do people's resumes, I don't use pictures. I make sure that I highlight your skill set, your background, what you can bring to the table, your transferable skills. So no, I don't like pictures. You definitely want to make sure that you have sections where you talk through your technical skills, like your core competencies, what tools and systems you have experience using, so that way it's easily accessible for the recruiters to be able to review. That way there's no confusion. Okay, this person has this experience, I want to talk to them, learn a little bit more about their background. It just makes it easier.
Just
Yeah.
a funny fact,
Mhm.
in Colombia it's mandatory, you have to have a picture.
Really?
Like, you send
And I
out
noticed people's
pictures of
birthday and all that stuff.
everything, like everything, the address, the birthday, so they know who you were.
Wow.
They can say no for talking like legally, and we all know them.
Yeah. So no.
That's okay.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Question.
Huh?
Got another one?
Yeah.
Got another one? Remember what happened now, 'cause I don't want to keep everybody.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just so. How about if we don't have enough experience about that major, and how can we convince the HR or the interviewer so we can actually handle that position,
Mhm.
or we can actually do that? Because personally, I don't have any experience because my major it was totally different. So
Okay.
I just changed my major, so
Okay.
I'm confused about that.
What did you change your major to?
It was English language and literature.
Okay. And what is it now?
It's now data.
Okay. I would say start doing your research while you're still in school. Start doing your research on companies that have new grad programs. So that way you'll be able to, they expect you not to have experience. It's 0 to 2 years of experience. So like for example, with the company I work for now, there's a whole new grad team that looks for recent grads that have data analytics experience or engineering experience. So target those companies and make sure when you're working on your resume, you're able to talk a little bit about the projects that you've done, because that's kind of your work experience now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. You have a resource. All right. So we're going to wrap up here. Got one more question?
It was kind of. I didn't want to go.
No, it's okay. I'll come up. I'll come over. And tell us your name.
My name is Elizabeth Aquino. I had something similar to the other two students. I'm currently a first grade teacher and I'm
cool.
transitioning
Mm-hmm.
to education technology.
Okay.
And I don't have a lot of experience in the technical industry. industry, but
Mhm.
how would you recommend for me to tweak my resume to make it sound more technical?
Well, I would say, did everyone get her question? Okay. So I would say, one, that's great what you're doing. I love it. I would say definitely make sure you put your transferable skills, but target companies that are not necessarily the huge companies. Like what I try to tell people, there's technology in every company. So you don't necessarily have to work, that's why I had this slide. You don't necessarily have to work for any of these companies to get experience, especially with you as well. You're wanting to transition from nonprofit to a data analytics or a more technical role. Look for other companies where you'll be able to build your experience and then later go to one of those larger companies. So if they start doing your research, like Workday hires a lot of teachers, so look for companies that hire people in your field that you're able to transition. Another company to look at is Intuitive Surgical. Their training program is like top notch, and they look for teachers because that will give you the opportunity to transition into another field, but you'll also get an opportunity to use the experience you have, so you don't feel like I went to school and I didn't use anything I went to school for. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, McGraw-Hill.
And even in your current position as a teacher, the school would be the educational tech. And the chief exec officers, like in different charter schools, they hire a chief exec that has educational tech background.
Thank you.
All right. So how many of you guys know the importance of building a professional network? Okay, so why would you say it's important?
You can, like you said, end up meeting people that can change your life in terms of jobs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you also make better connections and you make more people.
Exactly.
Incidentally, you work together.
Exactly. And so, did everyone hear his answer? Okay. He said, huh? Oh, okay. So he said it's important to build your network and talk to people. I mentioned this earlier. You never know who's in the room, right? You never know who you're potentially talking to that can be someone that can advocate for you later on. So making sure that you put yourself in different situations where you're attending different industry events, talking to as many people as possible and letting them know, hey, I'm interested in this, or I'm interested in this company. Do you know anybody that works there? Being able to meet people on LinkedIn and reach out and schedule coffee chats, that's another thing that you can potentially do. I get a lot of people who want to just have a conversation and see how they can better place themselves to put themselves out there or transition into other careers. Attending industry events. So I know with COVID, a lot of people are still leery about going to events and talking to people in person, but if there are virtual events that you're able to attend, try to attend those as well so you can start meeting some new people and networking that way. Also, you guys are having some alumni come next week. Definitely get their contact information, talk to them, because you being part of alumni networks are definitely a way to get some traction with getting an opportunity. There are plenty of times where hiring managers look at where candidates went to school, or if they know somebody, they're going to be like, oh, we went to the same school, let me talk to them, you know? Create and share valuable content. Are you guys active on LinkedIn? Okay. So do you just like look at people's posts, or do you comment, or do you share it? Like, what do some of you guys do? You just scroll and follow? You got to start meeting people. Look at it as a way to network and actually talk to, these are real people now that could potentially help you. So definitely try to, you know, when you just hit follow, send a quick note. Hey, I see you have experience in a field that I'm interested in, or I see you're currently working at this company. Can we schedule some time to grab a virtual coffee? You know, you never know. People will say yes. Like I said before, people. Exactly. That's how we met. She reached out to me on LinkedIn, and this was last year.
Yeah,
And
she does a good job of personal branding, marketing herself as somebody who does services. Like
yeah. So she reached out. She's like, can we schedule some time to talk? And here we are, you know. And even if it wasn't for this opportunity, Leonie is someone I would talk to outside of a work setting. She's cool. So you can meet new friends, you know, like that's what it's there for, to network and meet new people. You never know who is going to be able to open that door for you. So take it seriously. Don't just like, oh, they look interesting, I'll just follow. Join professional associations or organizations. I'm sure there's plenty of engineering and data analytics and different organizations that you guys can join to kind of network that way. And then also be a giver first and stay in touch with people. The reason I say that is because I have a lot of people who just randomly reach out to me on LinkedIn and not even introduce themselves, say anything. Like I had one person reach out and said, I want a job. Okay. Like, hello to you too. You know, like try to always portray yourself as someone who will give as well. You're not just reaching out to somebody for them to help you. How can you help that person? You know, so when you look at LinkedIn, for example, if you guys refer somebody, just like the referral program, you have to feel comfortable referring somebody because your name is on it, right? So you want to have the opportunity to get to know that person and talk to them and really figure out, okay, how can I engage this person and how can they potentially help me? All right? So any questions about building your professional network? Yes. Applicable to what we're doing here. So I would say junior to mid, and then when you get in certain situations, when you get in front of the hiring manager and you kind of have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what you've done.